Hello and welcome to Full Colour Alchemy. I'm Led Sharp and this is going to be a review of Abnett and Lanning's complete collection of New Mutants Volumes 1 and Volumes 2. That include New Mutants 25 and 37, 25 is when Abnett and Lanning took over the title, and Journey into Mystery 632. And Volume 2 is New Mutants 38 to 50, Exiled Issue 1, and Journey into Mystery 637 and 638. It includes all the material that Abnett and Lanning worked on using these specific characters. Now, my reason for buying these two comics is because, one, I'm a big fan of Abnett and Lanning and have been since their Annihilation and Guardians of the Galaxy days, and two, I've always been fascinated by the New Mutants. They are a precursor to X-Force, who are my specific favourite group of mutants, and they've always had a pedigree behind the creative teams, so it's always been a fascination of mine to go back and delve into their creative history. These were going for £20 each. One of them was a 3 for 2 deal in my local comic shop, which is how I got hold of it. And I eventually just thought, stuff it, I want them. I'm so glad I got them because they are superb, which I will now go into detail in the video. So, way back in December 2009, X-fans got an early Christmas present in the shape of New Mutants Volume 3, written by Zeb Wells and illustrated by Diogenes Neve. I apologise if I have mispronounced that name, I've never heard it said out loud before. The book seemed to struggle until issue 25 when writers Abnett and Lanning took over. Not that the book was bad before, just that it was clearly hamstrung by endless crossovers and not given enough space to develop its own personality. Abnett and Lanning came in and clearly put their own stamp on the book. The first thing they did was establish Dani Moonstar as the team leader. In their initial mission, Logan learns of her leadership abilities and clearly puts her forward for the role. A&L also removed two of the New Mutants' incredibly powerful players from the board, Magic and Cannonball. Magic being under house arrest for events in previous stories and Cannonball due to some mental health issues. Both characters and their situations are handled logically and with care and respect, and while they never directly take part in missions, they remain touchstones that the stories refer back to for various reasons, making them integral background elements in the narrative. The most important thing that Abnett and Lanning actually do though is give this vestigial team of mutants an actual mission statement. While Cyclops is assessing Dani's leadership abilities and her choices in the field, he offers her the chance to lead her team as part of a clean-up squad that goes around tying up loose ends that the X-Men have possibly forgotten about or left behind. On the surface, this is a little bit of a crapshoot. You don't want to be the mutant race's garbage men. On the other hand, it's a very clear purpose for a team that has often struggled to find one. X-Force have always been the mutant wet work team. X-Men have always been mutant police force and the superhero face of mutant kind. X-Factor were a government-run team of mutants, Exiles were a team of dimension-hopping mutants, and so on and so forth. Every X-team has had a fairly distinct function or a place within mutant kind, but New Mutants have always felt a bit tagged on, a nostalgic nod to a great idea. Cyclops gives them a function in the mutant population. Dani becomes the focal point for the team, and while other characters have very real beats and genuine progression, the main two characters to actually carry the book are Dani Moonstar and Doug Ramsey, aka Cypher. That isn't to say that the other characters don't get a story arc or feature as fully formed with personalities, it's just that Abnett and Lanning clearly pick Dani's journey to become the best possible leader she can be and Doug's journey to become, well, what he becomes, as the poles with which all other characters are hung between. Abnett and Lanning give every character a clear and distinct voice and purpose within the story, but rather than go crazy and try and tell the story of every character, they give them a flavour and define them, allowing them to serve the purpose of the book's narrative, rather than struggle to squeeze everything about them into a limited amount of comic storytelling space. My favourite character moments quite often come from ones that I've never actually read before. Mild spoilers ahead. Amora has a wonderful time on a date with Mephisto. Warlock has a secret puppy from hell. Sunspot is a character that I enjoy, and it's interesting reading the early days of the character that will go on and lead a team of Avengers. A&L also love playing with the Asgardian aspects of the Marvel Universe and the connections Dani has with that. specifically being a Valkyrie in Hela's army, as 2 story arcs revolve around Asgardian shenanigans. It's certainly an aspect that appeals to me, being a massive Thor fan, and the Exile storyline in Volume 2 is a wonderful example of the pragmatism and down-to-earth nature that the New Mutants bring to epic, cosmic or magical stories. An example of Dani's leadership isn't just in the field tactics, it's how she cares for her team and how she eventually moves them to San Francisco in order to be a more autonomous unit. It's interesting to note that she doesn't take a side in the conflict between Cyclops and Logan. Her team's mission is clear: finish the unfinished business, not take part in mutant politics. Even the players that are taken off the board are not forgotten about. Magic's incarceration never becomes a sticking point. It's logical, and whilst perhaps unnecessary, you can completely understand every point of view involved. Cannonball's inability to perform, as a superhero and team leader, is also understandable, and feels grounded in genuine trauma. Dani doesn't just forget these characters, she actually gets a therapist from her tribe to help them, and Gus Grim, the therapist, becomes a supporting cast member, especially when other characters need his help. Dani holds the team together through a seeming instinctual leadership, and at no point does she ever become a one-dimensional "I'm a woman leading a team in a man's world" stereotype. In fact, the mutants as metaphors theme is never played out at all. A&L avoid cliches, and while on the surface their story structures are go here and punch that, they have broader meanings built on them, telling a deeper story in a fun tale. There's no bickering or infighting. This is a family with that level of internal friction, specifically between Sunspot and Amora. Romance takes some very interesting, quirky and amusing turns, but at no point does it feel forced. It all comes from a natural place in the story. All this makes Doug's journey specifically so sad, even though, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but his art made me cry, and it's something that deserves to be experienced. Now the art. The art is possibly New Mutants' weakest element, but that's like saying the lettuce and tomato is the weakest element in a BLT. While it's consistently strong and never falls below good, there are several places where the action is muddied by a poor choice of camera angle, or a little too much detail, or a panel being a bit too busy. There's also a couple of places, specifically towards the end of Volume 2, where the lettering is an abject nightmare to read. It's tiny red writing on a black word balloon, and it's like reading the literary equivalent of a migraine. But it's only for a few panels, and it doesn't detract from the book, except maybe slowing down the emotional impact for a handful of panels. With the art styles from Leandro Fernandez, David Lafuente, Robbie Rodriguez, Michael Ryan, David Lopez and Mitch Britzweiser, I really hope I pronounced all them right, it is a vast range of styles to try blending together. Each artist has a story, and they are similar enough to be consistent within the 2 collected editions, but distinctive enough that make me go, oh, this is a different artist on a different story. And while I would have preferred one consistent look throughout the volumes, at no point do the different artists take you out of the fact that you are experiencing the same settings and characters that were present in the previous story. They each have their specific quirks. David Lafuente and Robbie Rodriguez, for example, have quite stylized angular line work. David Lopez tends to exaggerate facial expressions like a champ and reminds me vaguely of Frank Quitely. But as I said, at no point do the differing styles break the enjoyment of each story, and each artist tells a specific arc, so you're not changing midway through a storyline. Again, my only issues are the occasional muddy action sequence, but that just means you've got to look a little harder at the art, and it's pretty great art, so that's not a hardship. The strongest aspect of the whole run though is how natural it all feels. There are moments to catch your breath after reality warping adventures, and moments where they all go to a Mardi Gras to just be a family, and A&L slaps some natural character beats down. There are no characters that don't play a good tune, and at no point was I taken out of the book by a poor choice made by a character, or something that I didn't think that the character would do. As mentioned, on the surface the stories are all go here, punch that, which in hindsight is actually the team's mission statement, but never ever dull or hackneyed. Each story reveals more about the team, and even the team's punching is creative and well executed. The heavy Asgardian elements to the book really appeal to me, but there's also in Volume 2 a time travel story which is genuinely haunting and has some of the cleverest use of time travel I've ever seen in a comic, to be perfectly honest. All of this is topped off with a variety of art styles that fit each arc perfectly, but never removes you from the fact that you're reading the same characters. Abnett and Lanning got me into the New Mutants in a way that made me feel at home with the characters. I have them as my phone wallpaper, which is always a good sign. I will probably go back and buy the other volumes of this particular run, especially the recent Jonathan Hickman stuff on the New Mutants, as I absolutely love what they're doing with the X-Men at the moment. That being said, the Mutant Universe is one of those that I only ever dip my toe into now and again, and writers and artists that genuinely interest me get me to read the books. But it would appear there's an awful lot of good stuff out there, and it's terrifying to think that I might be missing out on some of it. I would highly recommend these two comics. They will sit proudly on my shelf as examples of great comics, and I'm not ashamed to admit that it moved me. I was genuinely in tears towards the end of this run, and it's definitely made me want to pick up more New Mutants, and definitely more Abnett and Lanning, and that's not a bad thing. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can find these. I hope you buy them. They are superb self-contained comics. The stories feel complete. There are a couple of moments where you go, whoa, what was that about? But it's external stuff to do with the greater scope of the X universe. And it never takes you out of the story. It just kind of shows you that this takes place in a wider perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that. It enables you to go, do you know what? That sounded interesting. I'll go and dip into it. With that in mind, I hope you're all okay. I hope you're enjoying my new background. It's Yggdrasil. I got it, and I'm really made up with it. I can just see it on my little monitor just here. Look at that. Hey, an actual background that I'm happy with. It's a little bit weird over here, but it gives me enough display space, which I quite like. Did that work before? So there we go. Yep, boop. That's cool. And yeah, enough. Okay. I hope you're all safe. I hope you're all being good out there, and take care and have fun reading comics.